My logo. All right, let's get our Facebook groups going. It'll be time to start the show. All right, there we go. Welcome in, folks. Welcome in. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. That is on me. Scott was waiting patiently, hanging out with the cat. And I was just trying to I got an email saying that Garmin is going to be down here for a bit. And I'm going to be going on a backpacking trip and wanted to make sure my satellite communicator was up to date. And of course, you need a special type of micro USB that transfers data rather than just, your typical micro USB. So digging around, finally found it. But we're good. We're here. Hopefully I'm not going to die in the backcountry in the next 2 weeks. So how you doing? Yeah, that's always a good thing. I got other people to provide for now, although I do have a sweet, not to be George Bailey on It's a Wonderful Life, but I do have a sweet life insurance policy. But no, we're all good. We're hanging out, and good to see you again, Scott.
Yeah, I once said to my dad, "I'm really valuable dead." How's that for being morbid?
I mean, it is kind of the premise to one of, in my opinion, the best Christmas movie of all time. But you got to kind of like some of the old timey classic stuff. It's a Wonderful Life is long drawn out, but gosh, such a good movie. Not to get Christmas in July coming up here, right? But let's say hello to everybody in here. It's a wonderful hike. Yeah, it's Mostar. I'm excited to get back out there here in a couple weeks. I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, Scott. We're in a weird time of year right now where like a lot of the alpine stuff is still very much covered in snow, but melted fast. So like planners like me, where I want to have options and everything, I'm probably not going to know what trail I'm going to do until 3 or 4 days before, just because want to see what the trail reports are, what's melted out. But we'll see. Right now, I haven't talked about the old boss with this one.
I was going to say enjoy it, because for the next 18 years or so, you won't have a choice on what you do for the weekends.
Yeah, I mean, I'll hopefully be able to still go do some things, and hopefully the little guy likes doing this stuff. I'm very much a type 2 fun person when it comes to hiking and climbing. Like some people, and everyone hikes their own hike, not to be judgmental, or some people can't do the harder stuff. But if I don't get back to the car questioning my life decisions, then I typically don't feel like I had as good of a time. I want to have the one where I like driving home, like, that stunk. Wow, that was the worst thing ever. Actually, I quite enjoyed it. Yeah, that was the best. Let's do it again. Hey, yay. But right now I'm leaning towards the Timberline Trail, which is a 41 to 44 mile, depending on the year, circumvention. Is that the word? Around Mount Hood in Northern Oregon. So that's it'd be tough to do in 3 days. I told her 3 days, 2 nights. Maybe I'm going to do 4 days, 3 nights. We'll see. But should be fun, whatever we do.
Well, let's get to some Broncos talk. What do you think, y'all? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to be judgmental. I'm talking about my own stuff here, Zach. It's people who go out for a 3-mile flat hike. God bless them. That's for them. I'm going to be bored. So that's just, I need to get my heart rate going. And speaking of heart rate going, we got our folks coming in here, and always getting our heart rate going is Michael Ronquillo with the support, the stars, the super chat. Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Michael shared a little bit of information about his father's health today, this morning in the Falcons show, saying he has pneumonia right now. I don't know how old your father is or any other comorbidities, but regardless, scary stuff and miserable stuff. So hopefully that is resolved here and cleared out pretty soon, because pneumonia's nothing to mess with. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, for sure, Michael. Appreciate you being with us, and we are thinking of you for sure. Thank you for the support on all of our shows and platforms, as always. The Michael, the Sunrise. You got different nicknames on different shows. You're the Sunrise to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Bright and early. I don't know. Arizona, I think, must be Pacific time. I don't know if they're Mountain or Pacific, but
they
either
don't
way.
change. If I'm not mistaken, right. They stick. They stuck it to daylight savings, and they don't fluctuate.
So whatever
it
it
is, the time of year, on what time it is there.
God, bizarre. Regardless, thank you so much, Michael. Great to see you. Hope you're doing well. We got Dominique says, morning, just checking in. Hope everyone is enjoying the off season. I can't wait for the start of the season. I can wait because I don't want to be let down. Dominique, you sound like somebody who's been following this team for the last decade. Right now, the vibes are high and immaculate, and hope is great. I'm a little bit more.
Everything's good. Everybody's in first place on opening day, baby.
Everybody improved in the draft. Everybody made the best free agency signings. Wait and see. if you want to be optimistic, I was thinking about this the other way on the dog walk, on a dog walk the other day. It's like, I don't know if it's just, being jaded or just how I am as a scientist, but I'm always very wait and see. And, you have all these question marks on the Broncos. And to me, until they showed on the field, they're nothings, right? I don't think of these guys being as number one receivers or anything like that. And I think about some other people in here. Troy Franklin's going to be amazing. He's going to be so good. You're going to get rid of Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims, now that Judy's gone, is going to be great. It's like, God bless you for having that perspective. But for me, until I see it on the field, I don't factor them in as to anything but blank void question marks.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like I said, it's the fandom time of year. It's just, again, as a grown up in Atlanta, I mean, we stunk. I grew, especially in the 80s. You had one winning season between like the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Falcons from like 83 to 90. But I'm a cynical sort. Show me. But again, there's still reasons to, this is why we enjoy the scouting and the research and the prognostication. There's still reasons to think, okay, it can get better here, here, and here. I'm not so sure here. To blindly say it's all going to get better, that's blind faith, not realism. So we try and do a little bit of both. We don't want to say. I think my goal on this stuff, and I've asked this question before, was if your expectations are sky high for this team, what happens if they're not met? What's the over under on wins for this team, Nick? Is it's like 6.5?
It's
by
5.5.
It's 5.5. That's what Vegas thinks your over under on wins is. You know what? They don't miss a ton. Yeah, they miss some. But out of 32 teams, they're going to be pretty close on a lot of them. What if they go 6-11? Are you screaming for Sean Payton's head? I mean, it's all relative. Why did they go 6-11? If you go 6-11 and Bo Nix looks great, you're good. If you go 6-11 and your quarterback play takes a big step backwards, you might be upset. You're thinking, so my thoughts on this is always try to set expectations, because what is your reaction going to be if this team isn't 11-6? Are you calling for the coach's head? Should you be? We'll see. There's a lot of factors that lead into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one reason that last season I feel like maybe I was a little bit more lax on Vance Joseph out of the gate. And granted, it wasn't good product, but like, especially on defense, you got to have the horses. And I just didn't think they did. And people are like, oh, Vance Joseph's the worst ever. It's like, did you look at the roster? I mean, what was your expectation? I'm not 70 points against the Dolphins bad, right, but like people miss. Yeah.
We talk about memes all the time, Nick. Our expectations were low, but holy.
Yeah. I mean, making like, Justin Fields look like a Hall of Famer. It was Sam Howell even, but I didn't have a lot of expectations coming in. So a little bit more leeway because of the talent. And we got, speaking of hopeful, Kroll will be our tight end number one answer. I mean, even if he is a serviceable tight end over the duration of his rookie contract as a tight end 2 or something, that would be a hell of a get for a practice squad pickup from another team. Maybe he ends up being the tight end 1. I think probably more so if he's your tight end 1 this year, it might speak more to the position and the guys around him and the health of the guys around him than it is Kroll being a top 10 tight end in the NFL kind of thing. But I mean, again, talking about expectation, where's the reality? You picked him up off the practice squad of another team as an undrafted free agent. Making the roster and making positive contributions on the Broncos is a hell of a get for the pro scouting team and for what his pedigree is as a player.
But Shiloh, yes, this is kind of the example that we're speaking of, right? You're, the Lucas Kroll is reaching legendary status over the course of the summer. He's in his 3rd year in the NFL. He's, he'll be 26. Happy birthday. In 2 weeks, he'll be 26. Happy birthday. To his career through 2 seasons, he has 95 yards receiving. What are the odds? Now, I'm not saying it can't happen, but what are the odds this guy's going to be a Pro Bowler? That he's going to be a legit, amazing weapon for your team. Slim. The odds are really, really low that this guy's going to come off a practice squad in his 3rd year with 95 yards to his name and become a 800, 900 yard, 7-8 touchdown guy. Is it possible? Yes, it is. And that's why it's fun this time of year to have that type of hope. I don't mean to whiz all over it, but the odds of that happening aren't good. They're just not good. And the odds that every single one of these guys that we're expecting that needs to step up, of them all doing that, pretty minuscule. So you're hoping to get some young guys that you can build on, take the cash next year, get your answer at quarterback, get another group of draft picks coming in without giving away your first rounders and your second rounders, your day 1 and 2 picks, and rebuild this thing, because you did some damage to your roster the last couple of years. And that's not a hot take. Y'all know all about it.
Yeah, not a doubt. But Kroll could end up being the tight end 1 answer. You're hoping, though, he's probably not any higher than your 4th or 5th receiving option. Now that changes, 3rd down, red zone, et cetera, but we'll wait and see. And we got Troy coming in, who was the idea man for the episode today, talking about the last contract guys for the Broncos. And we'll work through that here soon. But he says, hey guys, seems like we signed many players to 1-year contracts. If so, our cap space for next year is a bit of a mirage because we need to sign so many. I'm not sure exactly what the number is for the Broncos in players under contract in 2025. I do think they'll probably have to sign a lot, because you have now 2 draft classes back to back with smaller overall classes, which means not as many guys on those 4-year rookie contracts. But we'll see. I know Denver coming into this season had a lot of players that were a lot of players carrying over to the 2024 season from 2023. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the cap space will be higher. You can work your way around it anyway. I mean, you're still going to have the Russell Wilson dead cap hit, but you're going to have money to play with next year.
And no, Troy, it's not a mirage. It seems like we signed so many players to 1-year contracts. That's what you do when you're fighting the cap right now. When you're taking on a $50+ million cap hit, you take on a bunch of guys that are hungry, that are going to prove it. Nick and I talk all the time about it. Seems like there's just a lot of synergy between the Atlanta Falcons and the Denver Broncos. Since he and I started working together on this and doing 2 shows together, the 2022 Atlanta Falcons roster was threadbare. I mean, it was just, for example, the guy who was covering the slot receiver against the against CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys in 2022 as your starting slot corner was moved to running back the next year. That's how the roster was. Now, the Denver Broncos roster is ahead of that 2022 team. But the Falcons survived cap hell by signing a bunch of guys and scouting a bunch of guys that came in, and they did really well in the trenches on this. They got some defensive linemen that came in and did a job and left Atlanta and got paid. But you're getting who you can afford, who want to come in. This is one of my last chances. This was my prove it deal. And they might not be here in a year on the 1-year deal, but if they do well, they might be playing somewhere else on more money. That's okay. And what it means is, Troy, you're not shopping off of other people's practice squads. And he was released by X. And, we're scouring the waiver wire for players because that's all we can afford to do right now. It means, how much dead cap money do you have in this year, Nick? 60 million, let's just say. Let's just say 60 million. It might even be a little bit more than that because of Randy Gregory, but it's probably a little bit more than that. How many guys do you have over $10 million on your team on your cap hit right now? Active.
10?
It's 3.
3.
There are season. 3 $10 million players on your team right now. I get $60 million back, and I can add 6 guys that will be in the top 10 earners on my team. What do you think that does to a roster? So it's not a mirage. You will be shopping in a different level of free agents next year than just trying to get by this year. They won't say rebuild in Denver. They won't say it. All of their actions show that this is a let's find out what we've got season so we can come out swinging in 2025.
Wow. Just looking at cap space for next year, just get the numbers right. 51 million, 0.220, 32 million dead. How much cap space do you think the Saints have next year, Scott?
Minus 150.
Negative 99 million. they can't keep getting away with this. No, let's say hello to some more people in the chat. Jeremy Sean in the house. Thank you so much for the super chat, Troy. Morning boys, feels like a very defining year for Sean Payton. This is the year we find clarity on who the Sean Payton and non-Payton guys are. Yeah, I'm curious if this extends beyond the players there, Jeremy. There's some holdovers from coaching. We've already seen some turnover there, of course, and then the front office, especially. If this is a bad season, it sounds like the George Payton, Sean Payton dynamic's working well, but if the season falls off and is bad, could see that despite the relationship going well, it is a results business in the end. Dave Glassman, great to see you. Says, thanks for improving my workday 2 to 3 times a week. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate that. Gatorade Gaming. We got Monica. I think Stearns, because of injury, will be let go. And Williams, I think, should test the market. What are your thoughts? I think that Stearns could be let go if he's injury prone. And I think you're talking about Javonte Williams here. I don't know if he should, if you mean test the market, you mean shop him around trade wise. I don't think you're going to get very much for him right now. He's probably more valuable as somebody competing for a spot than what would it be, a 6th round pick, maybe for a running back on a last. That might even be a little high for a running back on a last year contract with an injury history. But yeah, we'll see with Stearns. He's definitely competing for a roster spot. He could, I mean, the range of outcomes for him are so wide. He could end up beating out PJ Locke and Riley Moss and everybody and being the starter for 3 games. And then having, sorry to be morbid there or rude, but he could also be off the team completely. So we'll see what happens with Caden Stearns.
He's still cheap. That's the thing is I don't think there's much guaranteed money left in there. Yeah, his dead cap, if you waive him, you don't really owe him anything. So but he's still just 1.1 on the cap. So it might be worth the risk reward on that. It's low risk, high reward with him. But again, this is another one of those guys you're saying, okay, we're okay at safety. Caden Stearns is coming back. Is he though? And he showed flashes of how many games has he played in his career. He's been there 3 years. How many has he played? His snap count's been low.
6 games.
Yeah, it's tough. You're counting on, Greg Dulcich could come back. Tim Patrick could come back. Caden Stearns could come back. They could, but we'll see. The odds of all 3 of them coming back at, 100% and becoming the guys who you thought they could be they're low. So it gives you an opportunity for some of these other guys to step up. Josh Reynolds, I think, is an underrated signing for this team. We talk a lot about Marvin Mims. We talk a lot about Tim Patrick, but I liked the Josh Reynolds signing when it happened. He's a pro, and I think he's got a pretty good chance to be wide receiver 2 before all is said and done, Nick.
Yeah, there's a chance for sure. I want to say hello to Zach Powers. Says, I didn't know Roach was under 300 pounds. Everyone's been talking about him as nose tackle. Smaller than DJ Jones.
The chat keeps bouncing on me.
The 3 players over 10 million cap hit this year. I'd assume that most of them are guys who are going to be free agents at the end of the year, just given how contracts are set up. So I would probably say it's Bowles, Jones, and McGlinchey would be my assumptions for
McGlinchey took it's Sutton, Bowles, and
Sutton. Yep, that makes sense.
And then it came off.
Jones. It's got to be DJ
but
Jones.
The restructure and DJ Jones at 13. So 20 on Bowles, Sutton's on 17.4, DJ Jones is on 13. Again, and Sutton's on a week-to-week deal. If you want, his dead cap is 9.5, so you could save $8 million by moving on from him, and less than that with his Bates salary, you could get all of that back. Zach Allen is 7, Mike McGlinchey is 7 because those guys restructured their contracts, which tied you to Mike McGlinchey financially for another season. You could have gotten out away from his deal after the 2024 season, but by restructuring his deal, you tied him to 2025. So you are financially tied to your right tackle for 2 more seasons. If anybody needs to start playing up to the money that they are making, the guaranteed money that they will get from the Denver Broncos, it's Mike McGlinchey.
Yeah, without a doubt. Hoping for better from him this season, given you have a little bit less chaos in the backfield, but we'll see. We got Gatorade Gaming said the longer Justin Simmons is free agent, the more I'm hoping for a reunion with the Broncos. I just think that's unlikely, but I mean, you never know. And back to Zach Powers' point about Roach being under 300 pounds. Denver does not have a big defensive line, but it does sound like they're going from more of a 2 gapping, 1.5 gapping to single gapping this season. So a little bit more pressing gaps. Now that can lead you vulnerable at the linebacker spot because they're asked to take on wider gaps sometimes. So and take on more bodies. So with questions that, Barton's stopping the run, Singleton diagnosing plays, that could be a question for the overall run defense, but we'll see. It does lean into the defensive line. Colin Wood says, good morning, all. I don't know who was on there last year. Only real star is Sutton. And there's
Surtain.
Surtain, excuse me, and there's Bulls in Cortland. Yeah, we'll get into that here in just a second. Did want to say hello to some more people coming in, of course. Good to see you. We got Mark Reinhart says, good morning from Pennsylvania. Always great to see you. Dominique's in the house. Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well.
That's a Dominic. Slow down, Nick. That's a Dominic.
Dominic Armio. Good to see you.
Breathe. Slow down.
Roy Osborne in the house. Always good to see you, Roy. We got Jay coming in saying, Nick Herder going to be in my area going to Whitney. Yeah, climbing Mount Whitney. Hopefully I'll be coming out of the Whitney zone a month from today. So going to be out there for a few days. It'll be the highest I've ever been elevation-wise, and that will be a lot of fun. It's about a 6,000 foot elevation gain, and one of the bucket list areas in the United States, the highest mountain in the contiguous United States. Now, it's not, for the time of year I'm going, it's not true mountaineering where you need, to be roped up, ice axe, helmet, and all of that. It's a hike at the end of July, but still pretty darn difficult with the elevation gain. The thing that kills me, Scott, and you're kind of hinting at it earlier for yourself, I'm assuming here, but it's the exposure in the sun. For me, that weakens me so much. I can go for a long time in the shade and, elevation, but once I'm out, exposed sunlight for a long time, I kind of shrivel up and it kind of kills me. So that's the one that scares me the most right now with Whitney, because it's so high up. It's obviously above tree line and going to be very exposed.
Jay says, why the gap change? Some of it's personnel. If DJ Jones isn't meant to be over the center, he's not meant to be a nose guard. He was, if you play him off center as a defensive tackle, if I'm undersized, well, I can drop another lineman down. Again, you talk about Roach, you talk about John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen, and DJ Jones. Well, a front four of sorts, all of a sudden I'm pretty big again. If you're playing a 4-3, depending on what you want to do with some of your linebackers, moving them around, but you get bigger by moving everybody just a little bit wider and adding another lineman down there. So we'll see. But a personnel, I don't want to run a 3-4 if my nose guard's 300 pounds. It's not good for DJ Jones. We saw a lot of that last year as he had to slide inside, and it's probably not exactly what you want with Malcolm Roach, but they're two pretty good defensive tackles where you can get them isolated more. Isolated is hard to say, but if you're head up over the nose guard, you're going to be doubled. If your nose guard head up over the center, you're going to get doubled just about every snap, just about every single time. And that's not what these guys do best.
Yeah, by design. Mm-hmm. It's honestly just to be, more NFL overall centric here. What Dexter Lawrence did last year was unbelievable. I don't think, because the Giants were such an afterthought, but his ability to get pressures despite taking on double teams and playing over the A gap was, I don't know if you've seen the stats, Scott, but he's had 10 times more pressures than any other nose tackle in the NFL. He was, I'm a big Vita Vea fan, a very strong player, but the pass rush that you got from the nose tackle spot with Dexter Lawrence last year was phenomenal. One of the most underrated defensive players in football right now. We got Jetty Splash coming in with the super, says predictions on most likely injuries to expect stars of the season. I think you mean maybe at the start of the season, because Denver doesn't have many stars.
Well, I read this, and Jetty, I kind of want to go the opposite direction. I don't want to be negative and try and predict, okay, which one of the stars is going to get hurt? I don't like that. So let's talk about which one of the guys that we were talking about coming back and making an impact, as far as guys who are coming off in injuries. If you want to hit, Browning's had injury troubles through the years. Tim Patrick, Caden Stearns, Dulcich. There's 4 off the top of my head of guys that you're expecting more. And how about Javonte? We'll add Javonte in there.
Jonas Griffith.
Jonas Griffith. There's 6.
And
unfortunately,
this list
is getting long, Nick.
That's what she said. The other one here that comes to mind, and it hasn't been injured for Denver, but historically in his career has had some dings and bruises, is Mike McGlinchey. And I think if you look up on Google or whatever search you like to use, injury probability, they do a pretty good job of showing guys who have had a lot of dings and bruises through the years. and have issues. But I think McGlinchey is another one that, even though he wasn't hurt for Denver last year, probably need to keep an eye on for the injury bug with him.
So it's hard to predict any of these, Jetty, but of the guys that I think that can come back from injuries, that have been injured and have the biggest impact, Greg Dulcich. I think it's Dulcich. If he really takes the time off and gets that hamstring taken care of, I'm expecting a big year from Javonte Williams, but he didn't get hurt last year. He just hadn't quite fully recovered. But Javonte's kind of in that boat too. I'm expecting big things from Javonte Williams. I'm not ready to write him off yet. It was a miracle that it was a miracle that he was even on the field last year. You know, I'm not going to say, oh, wow, he really disappointed. Good God. He was a miracle to even be playing last year, year 2. Now we'll see Javonte Williams. And then I think Greg Dulcich, I don't want to bet a lot on it, but if I'm picking from this group, I think Greg Dulcich has a chance to be an impact player in 2024 for the Broncos.
I hope so, just because the value and the targets. The other one who stands out for me is Tim Patrick. I mean, you may be trying to phase out Cortland Sutton. Now he hasn't played in 2 seasons, so it's hard to say, but I guess reports are he's moving pretty well. Looks good out there, and wide receiver 2 is wide open right now for the Broncos. So I'm hoping for Tim Patrick too, by all accounts, a very good, hardworking, soft-spoken, intelligent guy. So it'd be awesome if Patrick could end up being one of the guys who steps up this season. So we'll see. We got Troy coming in. Also, we need to get into the topic here, Scott. Do you think Surtain or Miners get extended before, during, or after the season, or not at all? What makes the most sense? I'm expecting both of them to get new contracts in there. Miners, you have the deadline coming up where I think it's kind of dumb, Scott, but the offensive line tag is same for all the offensive line. So it almost makes 0 sense to ever tag a guard or a center because they're
we
getting
saw those
paid.
headlines last year. Will Lloyd Cushenberry get the franchise tag? No. He signed a record deal, and it was still about $6 million, 40% less than what the franchise tag would have been. No, you don't tag a center.
No, it's dumb. But yeah, the tag for Miners wouldn't make any sense. Surtain, you still have the 5th-year option and the tag in your back pocket. So obviously it'd be good to keep him and sign him, but you have leverage there where you don't feel as you have to sign him or lose him. Now, obviously, if you don't get him a deal after this year, I would expect a holdout from him. If I was his agent, I'd be saying hold out Surtain. But I expect both. I expect Miners to get extended, and I think Surtain will as well. But again, you have time for that one if the money isn't quite right yet.
I think there's a little more urgency on Miners because you don't have that 5th-year option in your back pocket. The 5th-year option can just be a negotiating window. I'm going to pick, I'm sorry, not your 5th-year option, but the franchise tag. You've got more time. You've got the 5th-year option and a franchise tag with Surtain. Now, he might play through his 5th-year option, and then you tag him and then sign him. It just gives you more time to negotiate. But I expect it to be worked out with Surtain. I would think, just based on it's a 4-year deal instead of a 5-year deal, and you don't want to tag him, Miners would get done first. But we'll see. I think there's more urgency to getting the Miners deal done first.
Yeah. So I'm hoping so. He's been a heck of a player. I know he's going to get an unbelievable contract. So that'll be interesting to see. We got Jess Kennedy coming in, says, good morning, Deacon Scott and Nick. Hope you're doing well. Colin says we need to win while the quarterback is cheap. You got 4. Honestly, the tag isn't even, or the 5th-year option isn't even crazy compared to where the quarterback market's going. So you got time for that. I mean, really, we're the next year and a half in reality, our evaluation time for Bo Nix. And then if he's not the guy, if he's not playing at a top 15 level or showing to be that guy, then you're probably on the quarterback hunt again. Not maybe with incredible urgency if he's playing, the 16th, 17th level, but getting paid nothing. You can probably, we're looking for quarterback. We don't have to get one, but that's so much questions with the quarterback right now. We're talking way in advance. We need to see what the play on the field is. But yeah, you're in your window right now. Unfortunately, you're not. I think there's 2 methods of quarterback play. You either have building a team with a quarterback. You either have the elite guy and you have to pay them and you don't really have much of a choice and you can win in that window, or you have the good serviceable quarterback getting paid pennies on the dollar for the market. But that requires having a built team around them. And there's a finite window in that one, as Colin says. And you're not there for Denver right now. You're probably not there, honestly, in 2025. You might be there for playoffs, but probably not Super Bowl unless Knicks is unbelievable. But 2026, 2027, those are the years where you're hoping Knicks is the guy. You've totally rebuilt this roster under Sean Payton's image. You have your draft picks. You phased out a lot of the previous draft class where you didn't have those top picks. Those are the ones to look for, where if you're going to have it and be competing for Super Bowl, it's probably 26, 27, but a lot has to go right between now and then.
Zach Power says, give Surtain a 6-year, $150 million with $120 million guaranteed. I think you're in the neighborhood. I just think I would knock it down just a little bit, where it might be 3 years of guaranteed money instead of 5 years of guaranteed money. So 4 years, $100 million, or 5 years, $125 million with 75 guaranteed ends up being, actually, they'd put a sweetener on the end of that. So it'd be like 90 guaranteed. But it would end up being a 3-year, 25 per guaranteed deal with a dead cap of like $15 million at the end of the 4th year, where then you would be in a situation that Cortland Sutton is in. Okay, I'm out of my guaranteed money. Do I want to play on a week-to-week contract in years 4 and 5 of this contract? No, I do not. But I think you're in the neighborhood, and they're at 25 per is what Surtain will end up getting. Dom, good to see you, Dominic. He said, should the Broncos draft a left tackle in 2025? Coming back to the buy or sell, one of the biggest numbers on there, again, free agent to be, $20 million cap hit is left tackle Garrett Bowles. Yes, I think you're going to be in the market for a starting left tackle in 2025. I just feel like, Nick, if Bowles was going to be here, now things change, obviously, but if Bowles is in a similar situation to Surtain, he doesn't have much guaranteed money left on his deal. He's on a week-to-week deal. If he wanted to stick around, I think he already would have already signed an extension. Could be mutual, maybe not. And things change, but my feeling reading the tea leaves right now is Bowles is not a Denver Bronco in 2025. You're in the market for a starter.
I think you are in a market for a starter there. The tough part for this for me is that left tackle especially is very much a first round or bust position for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions, but teams
how would you know? You follow the Denver Broncos.
And the only tackle both their tackles are first round picks. But yeah, we're looking at Bulls there. A lot can change this season, obviously. So I think it's still to be determined how this season plays out. If Bo Nix is the guy, then you can probably be okay spending a little bit more on the offensive line and keeping Bulls around. He might even want to see if Denver's going to be good, right? Because he's been on such a terrible team for them, never playing in the playoffs, never having a winning season.
He's at the tail end of his career, and every indication this year is 2024 is rebuilding, get better in 2025. I'm going for it in 2026. That's kind of the plan when you're in the midst of eating this dead cap and on a rebuild. How old does that make Garrett Bowles? 32, 33?
Yep.
He may want to take a little bit less money somewhere else. Simmons came up on this. Yep. Simmons will take less money to go play for a team where he thinks he can win a championship. I think we've already had our big sloppy goodbye kisses and farewells on social media. I don't expect Justin Simmons to come back unless he plays 2 years somewhere else and then comes back.
Yeah.
But I don't expect to see Garrett Bowles in a Broncos uniform in 2025, but we'll see.
Yep. A lot can change. I'm hoping they retain him and he has a good season and get a fair deal, because I want to take advantage of the defensive tackle / edge rusher draft class next season, where offensive tackle is not as good right now. There are some talented ones, no doubt. They'll go top 10, top 15, but not like
guys emerge. Yeah, it's a late emerging thing. There will be guys at the Senior Bowl that you're like, yeah, I like him.
Yeah, but not a lot of time first round.
But we picked out guys that have been capable starters.
Yeah.
Of course, they've been right side a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3 years we've been doing this, Nick.
Yep. They're there. A lot of times they take time to get up there. I just really want to take advantage of the edge rusher class, but we'll see. I got hard eyes for Michael Williams out there at Georgia, man. He is a freak. Abdul Carter at Penn State, James Pierce at Tennessee. We don't have to get into it right now. We got to keep moving. DJ Jones, another one, Scott. I think he's probably gone. He's going to be 31 years old. He's been serviceable. for the Broncos. He's a good player. If maybe you bring him back on a cheapish 2-year deal, but getting $10 million a year for his play, I think you probably phase out DJ Jones at that age.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he's there now.
Yeah.
Speaking of it, the conversation went into earlier, did the Broncos do enough? Remember that show, the MHH, when did the Broncos do enough? They didn't do enough in the offseason, and it's not necessarily they didn't do enough to improve the team. They didn't do enough to go all in on a rebuild, kind of half in, half out. If you're doing that, DJ Jones is in a Denver Bronco. It's like, okay, we want to rebuild, but we don't want to really sink into a rebuild here. DJ Jones wouldn't be a Denver Bronco. Cortland Sutton wouldn't be a Denver Bronco. And Garrett Bowles wouldn't be a Denver Bronco. And you'd have $40 million extra to play with right now that you could carry over to 2025 and have monopoly money. So will he come back? Depends on the year. If he has a great year, probably not. Probably not. He goes and signs somewhere else. If he has an average year and the market isn't that strong for him and you can get him back for half price, maybe.
Yep.
Maybe. But I'm with you. I don't really expect him to be a Bronco in 2025 either.
Yeah. And I'm just going to roll through a bunch of names here for undrafted free agents that I don't expect back. You can stop me if you think differently, Scott, but I think there's probably very minimal chance. Zach Wilson, probably not back. I mean, things can change, of course. Jarrett Stidham, probably not back. Samaje Perine, running back position, going to be 30 years old, probably not back. Tremont Smith, going to be 29 years old, probably not back, turning 30. Javonte Williams, second-year contract running back. Second contract running back. I don't think that's likely. Riley Dixon, punter, maybe.
I think Javonte's back.
You think Javonte's back?
I think he's back. His second contract, he's on his cap hit right now is like, what, 2.5? If he's back on 4 to 5 and doubles his money, I can see that happening because I can take the money that I'm going to save from Samaje Perine and give to Javonte Williams. Again, cap neutral. We've talked about this with if I go with a young left tackle, I take Garrett Bowles' money and slide it over to Quinn Miners. I'm still cap neutral across my line. So I can make that move with Samaje Perine to Javonte Williams, depending on the season he has. And that's going to be totally up to Javonte. That $4 to $5 million it's possible and remain cap neutral without eating into my ability to go out and fortify the rest of the team. And I can draft another young running back.
Next year's running back class, Scott, is going to be awesome for the NFL draft. I mean, it is going to be, this year we didn't have one drafted until pick 63 or something. It was really a late class. There were some talented guys there, but it was something like 13 of the top 15 yards getters last season in college football all returned to school.
They make more money.
Yeah.
The running back position, I think, will benefit the most from NIL in college.
I agree. Although quarterbacks are getting paid unbelievable money. But they
get paid unbelievably in the NFL.
Yeah.
So true. That's relatively speaking. They get paid peanuts relatively speaking in the NFL, whereas in college, they can still be the engine of the team. They can still be the star, and they could be the most valuable player on that team where they should be in the top 2 or 3 guys in NIL money. I
agree with you to a certain extent. That said, there are guys who are quarterbacks in college that are obvious college quarterbacks that would be like 5th, 6th, 7th round picks, and they're making money at the college level. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel comes to mind, who's been around, bounced around. He's getting money from Oregon.
Good for him.
He's a day 3 quarterback in the NFL, but I think he's a day 3 quarterback. Just doesn't have the arm. But those guys are getting paid crazy money.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's what the market is. I'm glad for him. Cam Rising, another one of those kind of guys. Bunch of guys I don't expect back. You said Javonte Williams. I'm waiting to see on that one.
I'm a maybe on him. I wouldn't just throw him in with with the camp bodies that are there.
Yeah.
The 1-year guys that are there on 1-year deals. He's at the end of a contract. I like his chances of being there in 2024, 2025 better than I like DJ Jones's.
Yeah, I agree with you. And this list is by last season's average allotted value. So you have this just going smaller and smaller numbers there. We'll see about him. I also think there's a chance Michael Burton's back, right? You're not paying him a lot. He's going to be 33, but he's a special teams guy. Same with Dixon. Angelo Blackson, Justin Strnad, Tim Patrick's interesting, but he's going to be 32. Matt Pert, probably not. Levi Wallace, probably not. Philip Dorsett, probably not. Sam Mustipher, we'll see. He sounds like he's the inside track to be a starter, but 1-year deal, probably not.
Let's
Andre
get to the
Smith,
important ones here, Nick.
okay. Calvin
Let's get to the
Thornton
important
gone.
ones because
Okay,
we're running a little long.
The important ones are
Baron Browning and Jonathan Cooper.
And we already talked about Quinn Miners and maybe Jonas Griffith as well. Worth just monitoring there.
He's not. He hasn't proven himself to be an important part of this team yet.
Yeah,
but Jonathan Cooper and Baron Browning are starters. Those are important players.
I think a lot of that's going to come down to, can Nick Benito become more of a 3-down player, or is he always destined to be a sub-package guy with his limitations? And also, what does Jonah
Ellis.
I was like, Griffith. No, that's wrong. Jonah Ellis look like as the edge rusher? You drafted a guy 76 overall. That's your borderline starter, second team edge rusher. If he comes in and is killing it, maybe you let both these guys go. But Browning and Cooper are going to be interesting. Both are going to have markets, obviously, out there. You're probably not bringing back both of them. I'd be happy with either. Obviously, Browning has much. We didn't talk about Brown. Did we talk about Browning being an oft injured guy as well?
Yeah, that was one that we labeled into the players that have had injury histories that could, who can have the biggest impact that we've seen injured. Baron Browning is in there, is in that group.
But either of those guys, it's going to come down to obviously what they look like this season. Browning's more talented than Cooper. Cooper's been more of a steady guy, so I'd be fine with either. I don't expect both back though.
I'm with you on that. It's you always like to talk about the Batman scene with the Joker where he snaps a pool cue and says, "We're gonna have tryouts," where it could be one or the other and earn it this year. And for Baron Browning, if Baron Browning plays 17 games, I think he's back. And because he'll end up being a 10 million plus guy if he plays 17 games. If he's 15 or below, then you start having questions about it. But Cooper, it depends on the market for him. It really does, because he is a nice piece to have for as cheap as he's been. And if he's a $5 or $6 million number 3, yes, please. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
If he's a 10 to 12 guy, good luck. Thank you. We appreciate your contributions.
Yep. I'm with you. The last ones I wanted to shout out here. We have a bunch of guys that probably not coming back, but interesting. We're on special teams watch, wide receiver watch here, Scott. Brandon Johnson and Jalen Virgil, both pretty good special teams contributors. Probably not back, but they're both restricted free agents. They're not going to cost a lot. So interesting training camp battle. Both of those guys, talking again about the pool cue snapping over. You're talking about the 5th or 6th wide receiver. You're going to have to be a special teams guy that far down the list. And that's going to be an interesting to watch. I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys is back as well. And they're worth a shout out here, at least at the very end. Yeah.
Michael's saying goodbye for us. He says, great show. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Thank you, Michael. And again, our thoughts are with you and your family. And Gary's hopeful. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott. Fans are impatient, and I get it, but keep an eye on the developmental players. I think we get more than we expect. Go Broncos. I think the number one developmental player on this team that everybody is going to watch is Bo Nix. After that, we will see. I still consider Marvin Mims a developmental player.
Mm-hmm.
At the running back position, I think, we're looking at, Estime. I've already seen a shout for him in there. Does he count? Franklin, all the rookies count. But, the young guys, Lucas Krull, there's just a lot of those guys, Gary, that you're counting on that are going to be in the 2 deep, and not all of them are going to hit. If you hit on half of them, you've got something. You've got something to build on. So it'll be a lot of fun this year to, there's certain things. It's okay to not win at times. One of them, when it's not okay, is when you don't have your first round draft pick. We've been there. The other one is when you're old. Like, okay, not only are we bad, we're old. We've been there with some of our teams. It's like there's no young guys that we're excited about. This is the core of the team. Yeah, they're taking their lumps now, but look out. When they become veterans and we got money to supplement them and we got more draft picks come in, look out. There's a young core to this team that's exciting to watch these guys develop, Gary, and we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. Thanks to everybody coming in today and hanging out with us. Really do appreciate you. Obviously, Gary Palmer coming in, Michael Ronquillo, Shiloh, Troy Boer, Jetty Splash. You guys killing it. Thank you so much for the support and the super chats. Make sure you guys click the thumbs up on the way out if you would. That always helps us a heck of a lot. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you're over on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Always a great spot to follow. And make sure you are subscribing, liking, sharing over on YouTube. That's going to have to do it for us today, guys. We went a little bit long on the times because I was a little slow getting in, but appreciate that. Scott's got to get to work. I got to get a dog baby walk in. So everyone have a great rest of your week. Hopefully it cools down wherever you're at. Maybe I'll send some of this nice, cool, refreshing Pacific air your guys' way, and not to rub it in. And appreciate everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.